Today we're meeting with Dr. Fred Ashton, the interim principal at Windham Tech, and his media specialist, Thomas St. George.
Tom, why don't you tell us what your background is?
My background is I am a former Norwich Tech graduate who worked in my field, carpentry, for a couple of years, and then decided to go back to school to get some business experience in accounting and marketing so I could go into business for myself. And that was in late 80s, early 90s, and the housing industry tanked. So I stayed in school and got my bachelor's in business, ended up working in banking for 10 years until I started working as a substitute teacher and teaching some banking classes in a Saturday career academy in Norwich, and fell in love with teaching. Went back to school at Sacred Heart University and got my master's in education and started teaching in Norwich. I taught there for 10 years. And then I just had a love for reading once I went back to college, and I decided to go to the advanced alternate route to certification for library media specialist and graduated with 2011. And ever since then I have been focused on reading and technology. Had some success in Norwich and ended up the position at Windham Tech opened up this year, and I was happy to come back to the technical school system.
And how do you feel about his work here, Dr. Ashton? Sounds like he's got a very good broad background, can relate to a lot of different subject matter.
Tom really does, and I'm really excited to have him here at the school. And even though we're a technical high school, I've always had the strong belief that the Library Media Center needs to be the hub of the school. It needs to be the focal point of the school because aside from the shops, which are very skill specific, the Library Media Center is for everybody, and that can be just a common place for students and faculty to get together and have one place in common. And so the Library Media Center is a real unifier, and Tom has done a lot to unify the school, to increase the school spirit, to get kids reading more, to be an outreach to the community, a number of things. So I couldn't be happier to have Tom here. I just wish he had bragged a little bit more about his background. I happen to know that he was a middle school teacher in Norwich. He was Teacher of the Year. I wonder if he might want to say a word or two about what makes somebody Teacher of the Year.
It was a nice recognition, but I think there's so many teachers that do great things. It's just some of the things that I may have done may have just been more out there in public view, and so they were seen. But a lot of teachers do great things in the walls of their classroom.
Well, I think probably because of your background and wide experience, you probably see things that others don't, and so that helps to give you a little more polish.
And I think one of the neat things about Tom and his position here at Windham Tech, and we have a lot of this at Windham Tech, and Tom is just another example. When you go back to Tom's high school experience, he's a tech school grad. And Windham Tech just seems to attract a lot of tech school grads, whether they're specific Windham Tech school grads or Norwich Tech school grads or Cheney Tech. So I think Tom really has an edge over the average bear who would come here as a library media specialist, because Tom has got that technical school background, and that gives him credibility. It enables him to relate to the tech teachers right from the start and the students as well, because a tech school library media center is going to have a little bit of a different flavor and a little bit of a different focus. And so I think that's another one of Tom's qualities here as a new faculty member.
Moving on to another subject, can you tell us about the Book Buddies program that you have going?
Well, the Book Buddies program was developed this year after speaking with our language arts department head, Jan Weston, trying to come up with ideas to focus on reading and support our reading and language arts goals. And at the same time, her mother unfortunately passed, and we had the anniversary of Sandy Hook. And I was working with our electrical department head, Kevin Arpin, who has a wife that teaches second grade at Windham Public Schools. And I was explaining that I'd like to get a Book Buddy program started. And so we kicked off our first event. We read a book called Houdini Was, which is a kids author's award-winning book with scholastics. A second grade class wrote it in Washington State, and it deals with the loss of a classroom pet. So that was our kickoff event. It was a huge success. We had some coverage from the press, and since then we've had another meeting on National Reading Day, and we read a book that our superintendent gave to all of the administrators in our district called Have You Filled a Bucket Today by Carol McLeod. It's a great character education book as well. We plan on meeting again on March 3rd, Read Across America Day, and we're hoping to bring the Windham Public School students here to Tech so they can not only read another great book called One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia about the life story of Rosa Parks, but hopefully they can visit our shops and get a feel for what the technical school system is all about.
How are libraries different today than they were, say, 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, I think the size is definitely a huge difference. From my experience at Norwich Tech, our library was about the size of a classroom, about a fifth of the size of our library here today. It didn't have any technology in it, and it was more reference-based materials, nonfiction materials related to the trades, as well as just encyclopedias and things of that nature. There's a lot of things that we find now that we just get on our computers. Our library is much larger. It has this space. It has a lot more materials that are just for pleasure. Trade magazines that are focused on the trades of the students, as well as fiction material for them to start reading for pleasure more often. And I think that's more the focus, just to get them engaged in reading at any level, whether it's a graphic novel, a magazine, a newspaper. I also think that libraries today, as Dr. Ashton said, are becoming more of the hub of the school. It's not just to go read a book. It's to go research and to have meetings, to have performances, whether they're theatrical performances or something to do with technology, creating videos for our school YouTube channel or something like that. There's much more interaction with the students. I did not visit the library as much as our students visit the library. I can tell you my experience in tech 20 years ago.
It occurs to me that not that long ago, generally schools discourage people from having technology, especially cell phones. What's the policy now? What's this BYOD thing that you've been talking about?
Well, James, we've had a very interesting evolution regarding smartphones and technology here at Windham Tech, and BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. And essentially, we are not only asking, we're encouraging students to bring their smartphones, to bring their iPads, to bring their e-books, to bring their Kindles, to bring whatever kind of technology they have to the school. And then in the classrooms, each teacher is responsible for deciding how much of that technology they're going to allow to be a part of their classroom, how much of that technology they're going to allow students to partake of. And just in terms of evolution, 4 years ago at Windham Tech, and like most high schools, in terms of smartphones and cell phones, and they didn't have iPads then, but in terms of all this technology, we were like most schools. Our policy was this stuff gets in the way of learning, and so keep your cell phone in your locker. If it's not in your locker and it's in your pocket, or if we see it during class, or if it beeps or chimes or vibrates during class, we're going to confiscate it. And the leaders in the technical high school system realized very quickly and very wisely that technology, specifically telling kids to keep technology out of the classroom and out of the school, was just a battle that we were never going to win. And in fact, up until 4 years ago when we went to BYOD, by far our biggest discipline issue was kids and their cell phones. And we were confiscating phones and keeping phones and suspending kids for phones. And after a few years of that, we saw the light. And we realized that we can actually take advantage of technology. Instead of seeing this as a distraction, it's something that we as educators can use to our advantage. And so in classrooms now, we encourage kids, certainly under the direction of the teacher, and every teacher may have a slightly different level of leniency or a slightly different level of tolerance, but under the teacher's direction, we encourage kids to use their smartphones, to use their iPads, and by doing that, we can take advantage of learning right on the spot, or what we would call a teachable moment. And an example might be the day after Martin Luther King Day, when kids are back and we're talking about the fact that we had that Monday off and what Martin Luther King is all about and what the day is all about. And the teacher can say to a student, hey, Martin Luther King's most famous speech is, "I have a dream." Somebody, get your phone out and find that speech and play that for us. And so we can take advantage of learning opportunities immediately instead of, back in the day where we'd have to say, well, let me research that and I'll get back to you. And you get back to the student a day or two later and, the thrill and the momentum is gone. So BYOD just enables us to take full advantage of the momentum and full advantage of answering questions. And it involves kids in their learning too. They become active participants in learning and in researching and in finding stuff as opposed to just the teacher at the front of the room. So BYOD we're like a college in that respect. We've really taken advantage of it, and as you can see, because I've been talking about it for 5 minutes now, I'm a real fan. It's taken discipline problems away and it's increased learning.
Yeah, I realized early on being a parent that you have to be careful of what kind of punishment you mete out for certain infractions, and it's better not to be too heavy-handed. Why is reading so important anyway? What does it do for a high school student?
Well, I think reading is important because everything that's learned in life is through reading. Stephen Krashen wrote a great book called The Power of Reading. He talked about how free voluntary reading, or what some people call SSR, silent sustained reading, or DEAR, drop everything and read, will improve a student's comprehension, their vocabulary, their fluency, more than any direct instruction. So rather than sitting in class for 90 minutes of direct instruction where they may get lost if they're not engaged, if they can just find something that they're interested in reading, whether it's a graphic novel, whether it's the newspaper or a magazine, or if they can find a subject in fiction that they're interested in, if they can read more frequently for shorter periods of time, so even 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, a couple of times throughout the day, they're going to improve their literacy skills. And research suggests that. So we're just trying to get kids hooked on reading. So if we can find any interest, anything that interests them, they'll say, oh, I don't like to read. And then you dig a little deeper and you find, well, they do like to read. They just don't like to read what we're asking them to read. Mm-hmm. So if we can find and engage our kids, some don't want to read a book. They want to read on their cell phone, or they want to read on an iPad, which is fine too. Anything to get them reading is going to help them later on in life.
I imagine that you read quite a bit. What are you reading lately?
Well, Doc has turned me on to Malcolm Gladwell. So going through his books, I'm currently reading David and Goliath, which my wife gave to me for the holidays. But I just got through a book by Dr. Michael Mosley called The Fast Diet, and that was a very interesting book, which I've shared back with Doc now, and I'm on that diet, which is not really a diet, it's more of a way of life. And so far, losing some weight. It's a good book. I like to read self-help books. I like to read Dan Brown, those thrillers as well.
How would you encourage parents to get their kids interested in reading more?
Just to inquire with their kids, what their interests are.
How do you encourage parents to get their reluctant kids to read more?
I think it's just the same way the teachers do it, to find something that interests the student or their child, read about it themselves, and then share the book with their child. Mm-hmm. I can tell you Doc has done that with Malcolm Gladwell here, and we have great discussions about the books afterwards, and that's what really hooks someone into reading, to be able to talk about what they've read afterwards and mm-hmm. share that experience with someone, whether it's a teacher or a parent, and that's what engages them.
Sharing is really good, and I understand you're looking at other media, like social media.
We are definitely engaging students with social media. We started a social media club, and we have some contests for social media kids. I created a YouTube channel at the school here. We've had one contest so far where students can just highlight some success stories at Windham Tech, talk about what makes Windham Tech special. I've taken a work-based learning trip with our Dean of Students and the machine tool instructor, James Carden, to advanced mold. And we've taken a video of former students and what they're doing out in the world, which is a far cry from what I experienced at Norwich Tech. I didn't expect our manufacturing shop to be producing plastic pieces. These molds that they create surgical pieces that doctors use in surgery. And the plant was nothing like any machine shop I'd ever seen before, with grease. And it was like you could eat off the floors. It was meticulous. It was amazing. But we're using technology so people can share the story of Windham Tech. And it engages students. We're also starting a public access TV show with some collaboration of teachers here, Mrs. Edmonds, Mrs. Andanella, Mr. Lusick, and Mr. Halen, as well as our assistant principals, where we're going to highlight school news and provide community connections, another, just like this avenue, to connect with our parents. But I think one of the true benefits, true strengths of Windham Tech are just the collaboration that we have between the shops and the teachers. I can tell you, working in the library, I've really benefited from working with the shop teachers to improve the library. I've worked with Mr. Arpin and Mr. Thomas to make improvements to our morning announcement systems. They're our electrical and electronic shop. Mr. Carden has made it a safer place by fixing some chairs in the library so they don't tilt back. Everybody works together. Mr. Mango's worked with me on creating a floor plan so students can find the books, so they know where to find fiction books, nonfiction, how the Dewey Decimal System is categorized in the library. But everyone really works together. Even on the academic side, Mr. Wilk and Mrs. Primavera have set up times to come in the library for students to have orientation, the learn about our different learning management systems, Schoology, Destiny, AR Bookfinder.
Schoology, that's an interesting term. Did you make that up, or what did
No, it's kind of like Facebook for school.
Really?
It's a learning management system where teachers can save videos, lessons, students can turn in work, they can create tests online and have them automatically go into their grade book. I've learned about it through another teacher here, Chris Morgan, a social studies teacher, first started using it. I was hooked on it. I asked our administrator, or the library media specialist here, if we could have some training on it. She provided it for all of the librarians. Now we're sharing information on it about different lessons that we have. It's a great system.
It's been great visiting with you, and sounds like we need to come back for some other interviews. Dr. Ashton, did you have any closing comments? You had mentioned some event coming up in March.
Oh, yeah. March 3rd is our next Book Buddies at North Windham Elementary School, and we just love to take some of our Windham Tech students and faculty over to the elementary school, and we've gotten some good coverage in the Chronicle on it. And, I look at those pictures and I talk to the kids, and I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking, number one, we've got second graders there at Windham Tech, or at North Windham, that are looking up to our Windham Tech kids, and maybe someday they're going to be some of our great students here at the technical school. And the second thing I look at is I look at some of our tech school kids working with those second graders, and I say, hey, there's a future teacher right there, because it's just so much fun to help kids learn. It's a great thing for the community. It's a win-win. Really accelerates interest in communication. So we're really excited about Book Buddies, really excited that Tom St. George is here with us. And, the final thing I'd say, James, is both you and Mayor Ernie, we would love to have you come out to our March 3rd Book Buddies and put a book in your hands and see if you want to team up with a second grader or some of our kids and do
I
a
get
little
to read
reading.
out loud?
You sure do.
Oh,
you
great.
sure do. I think you'll find it's a blast.
Yeah, I think it sounds terrific. Look forward to that. Thanks again.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.